Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So welcome everyone to the talk that will be presented by Dr. Hafaz Padi. So again, this is the paper, the third paper that you are presenting as a result of his research that he is doing with Prof. Aslam on epistemology and methodology in Islamic economics. So last time he presented the first paper on theory building in Islamic economics. The second one, I missed that one, so I do not know the title. Theory appraisal. So the title for today is Epistemology and Methodology of Islamic Economics, Bibliometric Review. Okay, so I think we will start with Al-Fatihah first, and then we invite Dr. Faslah to deliver his talk. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum.
Are you recording it, Isu? I don't think so. Oh, that should be recorded. Just click the record.
Should be recorded.
Now the other one is not
Which
recorded.
one?
You know that. Yeah. And the red button. Stop sharing. The red one on the green.
The red one, ini stop sharing.
On the left. There's a red.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
This is already recording. Recording on this computer. Okay. Hafaz.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, thank you Prof. Norma, thank you Prof. Aslam, Prof. Sahul, and respected lecturers. And, yeah, the son.
Is it muted?
Yeah, it's fine. No, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
It's not muted. Okay. Okay, so yeah, for today, we'd like to present the initial findings of our research with Prof. Aslam on progress and direction of epistemology and methodology of Islamic economics. So in our research, what we do is we try to collect the data, the references that discuss the issue of epistemology and methodology since the beginning of Islamic economics until now, and we have collected about 200 articles. So we see the data will be divided into subtopics, and we see what the scholars have discussed on certain issues. Then we'll see what will be the progress and direction of epistemology and methodological discourse in Islamic economics. So why there is a need to discuss the methodology? Because Islamic economics is a discipline. So many scholars agree that this is an emerging discipline, even though some scholars have said that this is not yet discipline. Because to be disciplines, it must satisfy certain requirements, such as there is a clear subject matter that needs to be discussed, and then there is a methodology, and then there is a theory, and there is knowledge accumulation. So it becomes body of knowledge. So that is the component of disciplines. Islamic economy is yet to be a discipline. So if we see the literature, scholars keep proposing something in terms of definitions, in terms of subject matter, the object of study, and then as well as in terms of methodology. So we have so many approach, so many methods proposed by scholars. Islamic economic yet to discover its distinctive features on the aspect of Islamic worldview, including in the dimension of ontology, epistemology, and axiology. So this is to the scholars try to show the case, and so to try to show the uniqueness or the distinctive of Islamic economics in the area of ontology, in the area of epistemology and axiology. And we see now the development of Islamic economic literature. So we start collecting from the 1970s, the references that we use until the latest, till now, till this year. And after collecting the references, so mainly from the online database, some literatures cannot be found online, especially the articles from the journals such as the old journal such as what was the name? Hamdat Islamico. So some cannot be found in the online database that what we keep managed to find it. And then we use the software and FIFO to do a qualitative analysis, so that this is to connect the idea from the references that we use. Then we do a review, we do identify, because we read all the literature, and then we copy and paste the quotation. There's certain important quotations from the references. We classify it, and then yeah, we do coding, and then we run the mapping. The literature that we have so far is about the total is 296, yeah, 196. So but the references that can be used is about 213 references, yeah? Because there are some articles that we think this is not yeah, the discussion is not really important, so that we omit that kind of references, and we exclude also 25 articles or 25 references because of redundancy. So there are some articles published in, for example, in SSRN, and then it's also published in journal. So this is a kind of redundancy.
Alright, so
Yeah.
books there.
Yeah.
The last time I was here, the son was Islamic economics textbook project.
Yeah.
Is it done?
We have now two locally done. One is the work of Isra, where Hafaz was actually there started. So there is a Islamic economics textbook,
Yes,
which Isra has published. And then, and of course, Mustafa, Mohtaz, and me were the editors. And then we have now a project with IT funding, where lecturers write course books specific to certain courses. So we've got a few, like Prof. Norma has got something on international economics. And then
It's a book reading.
no, it's a proper book for the course. It's a course book. So we want to move away from the reading. Previously, we had a lot of books on edited books, which is natural. So now we have, people who are actually writing. Well, we don't want to call it textbooks yet, because textbook gives a different idea.
So did you go including the books? Or did you
yeah, including the books.
Okay.
Yeah, we use some books. Yeah, so this will be it will be something like that. But after we have some we have done write up, but once we read, every time we read the articles, then the idea keep coming in. So this kind of diagram later on will be very much different. But the idea is that these are the connections, sample of connections that we will have later on in the report of our research. So motivation of research, Islamic economics needs to discover its distinctive features on the aspect of this is the area. And then the importance of conceptualization and implication of Islamic economic science. And then there is a need to clarify the definition of Islamic economic as a distinct scientific discipline and lack of acceptance for Islamic economic as a scientific discipline. So we are currently facing these problems in the development of our disciplines, and this research try to fill the gap by attempting to actually the scholars has discussed something on the feature of Islamic economics. And then they propose also so many things. So we do classifications later on, and then we see the connection of ideas from the scholars. But there are some gaps in the research on methodology of Islamic economics. Lack of methodological framework and its dependency to neoclassical methodological frameworks. Our methodology, the scholars keep saying that a kind of approach of interactions and integration with the mainstream economics. But we found that since our methodology is not yet solid, and the neoclassical methodology is very solid, then there is a dependency. So we are the scientific community of Islamic economics depends more to the others' methodology rather than its own methodology. And then there is also varieties definition of Islamic economic methodology, and if we see currently the progress of this course is not really happening in this area. The early development of Islamic economics shows more discursive, more discourse in this area rather than the next or the next generation of Islamic economics. And then the lack of the ability to produce theories from the sources of knowledge. So we are still facing this. Not many new theories that has been produced in Islamic economic traditions. Then if we talk about the epistemology of Islamic economics, then of course it is related to the sources of knowledge. Still, the discussion on how to interact with the divine revelation source of knowledge is still not yet clear in Islamic economics. And then that is one part. Another part is how to interact or how to integrate the three dimensions of the source of knowledge, divine revelations, and then intellectual reasoning, and then fact observations. These are also not very clear in Islamic economic methodological discourse. This is not yet to say that the foundation, the philosophical foundation in the area of philosophy of science, it is also very less discussed among the scholars. So we have scholars such as Alatas, and then Al-Faruqi or Senasar or Zainuddin Sardar, but their idea is in the area of philosophy of science. But we who are specializing in Islamic economics are doing less in trying to get their ideas and bring it to Islamic economic discourse. So that is if there is a kind of not there is no connection between what has been discussed in that area and the philosophy of science discussion and Islamic economics discussion. Okay, yeah, can just move on. Now, then the methodology of Islamic economics. So in this methodology of Islamic economics, we do subcategories. What is methodology of Islamic economics, and then why we need to have a discussion on methodology of Islamic economics, and then the goals. What, why, how? Yeah, what, why, and how methodology of Islamic economics. So what is the methodology of Islamic economics? Okay, methodology deals with the development and evaluation of knowledge. Of course, it is different with the discussion in the epistemology, because in epistemology, anything is discussed there. Theory of knowledge, theory of truth, theory of source of knowledge. So the discussion will be very wide. But methodology, we are dealing in specific way how to derive knowledge. We are deriving knowledge, and then we are proving that knowledge that we have derived is true. And in the most specific way, in methodology, we are discussing about theory, producing theory, and then how to prove, how to provide validate justifications that the theory is true. So methodology should not be interpreted as method, of course. So methodology will produce method, one of the output of methodological discussion. And then the scope. So we have done classification scope of methodology of Islamic economics based on our readings to the references. So we can classify into 3 groups. The first group, the discussion on methodology, is about a process of interaction and interpretations. It is about approaches to interact and integrate with the mainstream economics, with the Islamic traditions. So this is the mainstream. And then the second group discuss the discussion on methodology is about process of theory appraisals, or process of theory building. So in this group, they are trying to produce criteria, rules, principle, standard, personalization, argument, justifications for theory building. And then the method, technique, and steps that is needed to praise theories and to justify the theories. And then the third group discuss methodology about the process of disciplines or systemic development. So we see the movement currently that into this level now. This can be seen in the writing of such as Abbas Mirakhor. So in Abbas Mirakhor's perspective, methodology is about discipline development. We produce rules of behavior, and then we do some examinations of economic implications, and then provide policy recommendations. So it is more holistic, because trying to connect the science and the system.
Can I just add this one point? Yeah. I think we can also see group 1, group 2, group 3. It's also periodical difference. For example, the first group maybe are the earlier ones. Okay? And then as people develop a little bit more knowledge, then they start to move to say the second one, maybe the third one. So there is a general phase involved, although there could be some writings even today that I group 1. Okay? But I think that it's a natural process to a certain degree. People talk about approaches, they don't go for the criteria. So it's quite a natural thing for it to go like that, but that's what we will find out. Come up with the answers.
Yeah.
You're talking like that, time series. Would we go before 2? Because 2 is very abstract. 3, you must know what is the content of the thing first. What are you talking about first? So that 3 is quite distribution, production, and change distribution, and then the rules of behavior from Islamic sources. So shouldn't you have 3 first before 2? Because theory appraisal, I think, can take from the Western history and how to deduct your methods of and so on. But then maybe you can apply the thing that is okay. Or is it going to be something completely new, reinvent the wheel type of theory of research that we're talking about? Should we get 3 first before?
Yeah, it can be for that, but the idea in this is that now the consciousness to have a distinct discipline is there. I mean, that in the initial phases, we are still
grouping about.
yeah, still trying to find the ways to develop our disciplines. But now, since we have to a lot of interaction with the mainstream economics, and we still we feel now more confident to propose certain things. Why we need to discuss methodology of Islamic economics? So according to the literature, the references that we have, these are the four reasons. Four reasons why the scholars discuss methodology, or why they write methodology of Islamic economics. The first is flaws in the mainstream economics and methodology. Yeah, three flaws. And then scientific development of Islamic economics. This is the internal reasons. And then the methodology and theory building, and then methodology and knowledge foundation. So we'll see one by one. The first reason is flaws in mainstream economic methodology. There are three flaws. Of course, the ontological flaws, lack of realism in understanding economic phenomena or realities. This can be found in the word of Asad Zaman, Manan, Milhouse, and Sheikh.
Also from left-wing critical economics theory, sort of non-mainstream capitalistic economics, socialist and
Yeah, we share some ideas with the heterodox. Yeah. Even Amartya Sen also has an essay about this thing. And then epistemological flaws. This is because of exclusion of revelation in the source of knowledge. It's very short. And then the axiological flaws. This is because of lack of proper ethics in the scientific activities. So if you can quote from Zubir Hassan, of course, Prof. Zubir Hassan says that economics is still discussing ethics, but what kind of ethics is discussed? So in this regard, the ethics, the discussion of ethics, which is proper, is, according to Islamic economic scholars, is lacking. So when they discuss economic, they propose a new perspective of ethics.
Let me just add, to Shahul, especially to raise some issues. At this stage of the research, we are just presenting what the literature says. Okay? But what you have said, very important, this is where our next phase will be to do the review article, in which from the literature that has been written and from our, let's say, analysis of how the literature comes out, then we attempt to comment, right? These are the areas it should be, or this should not be, something like that. So that is maybe the next output that we would go for, maybe in about 3 months or so. I mean, that's the target. I hope it's now the deal of business, so economic business. So
this is not a critical review of literature, but
yeah,
a review of the
this is bibliometric review. Standard, just telling what people have done.
We want to see the state of the art. Then because in the last part there will be progress, collecting the current state of the art, and then what will be the progress or the directions. And then the scientific development of Islamic economic. This is I think the second reason. The second reason why the scholars write something on methodology, because we want to develop Islamic economic as a distinct discipline. So in this case, there is the integration gap. Two approaches, two group of scholars, economics and Sharia. Then this is the very well-known discussion in the literature. And then positive and normative. So there is also conflicting paradigm. Two contradictory paradigm of mechanisms. The mainstream approach is the Islamization in the mechanistic perspective.
Islamic finance.
Thank you for saying Islamic
Islamic
finance
finance,
and not
Islamic
Islamic.
Unfortunately,
So this is one paradigm. Another paradigm is more idealistic. This is the school of Syahul Gandhi. Then yeah, Sazaman as well. Makir Sadar and so many other scholars. So still the paradigm is still there, and then there is so somebody must try to connect between the two paradigms, and then to build a scientific credentials. So Islamic economics attempts to re-evaluate the mainstream theories of economics, and then lack of independent theory and foundations, which truly represent the Islamic term of systemic economics. So basically, the third argument is that about methodology is important to provide scientific justifications for the new disciplines. And then methodology and theory building. So this is the third reason why there is a discussion on methodology. Scholars such as Kaf, Iqbal, and Zaman says that methodology of Islamic economics will produce theories in line with the Islamic visions, values, source of knowledge, and goals. And then another scholar says that methodology of Islamic economics will develop scientific criteria in line with Islamic epistemological foundation, sources of knowledge, and criteria of truth. So this is basically in line. So once we have theories, then we must have another perspective on what will be the criteria to say that the theories that we produce is correct. And then the methodology and accumulation of knowledge. So this is again still in the area of why we need to discuss methodology, because unless we have a clear methodology, or unless we have the methodology, then our knowledge cannot be progressed. So theoretical development and practical application. So many scholars that to provide progress for the knowledge and for the body of knowledge, then there must be development in the theory, and then there must be practical application of the theory. So continuous evaluation is also important.
I want to ask you whether should it be the other way around? Because, for example, let's take the development of commercial economics, starting from Greece and so on. So it's a household, only business of buying and so on. So shouldn't we, okay, when we talk about production, that one came only probably in the industrial revolution stage line. But before that, with the arts or some craft, some exchange, the monetary marker and all that sort of thing. So all these different areas which are stated in the Quran because it's all in God's line. So we first recognize areas and then begin to accumulate together. And then somehow we develop theories then, and then it becomes a discipline. Or should we have a theoretical development first before we go to the practical application or development, you say accumulation of knowledge. Is it necessary for theory to develop first before you accumulate knowledge? So you accumulate knowledge about issues and then develop theory and then form a discipline.
Yeah.
Which way is it?
You remember Dr. Chinese? Dr. Chinese Khalid, who was with
Oh,
us.
yeah, okay.
Remember in discussion with him, we always think even when we teach and how we were taught that usul fiqh leads to faith.
Okay.
Right? So that seems to be the process, right?
Okay.
But he said when he looked at historically,
It's
actually the practice went first, right? And people gave opinions first.
Yes.
Only after that the usul came. Right? So in that sense, you probably you are raising a very relevant question. And I think we see it already, right? In banking finance, the practice is already gone. It's already there for the last 40 years. And now we are trying to find
theoretical
justification, rationalization. So it's okay. Maybe we don't take 1 and 2 in order. It's up to
maybe inductive and
yeah, because they really do it maybe both ways. Maybe it goes both ways.
Yeah, surely both ways.
metro. Going back and inductive versus deductive. Okay.
Yeah. Then in the previous presentation as well. So when we talk about theoretical development, so the one that will be developed is theory, not the doctrine. So we can classify in terms of theory building. It can be three stages: the pre-scientific or pre-construction of a theory, and then constructing a theory, and then the post-construction of a theory. So in the pre-construction, it's a kind of pre-scientific activities, whereby we develop the basis, the foundations, or it is about the doctrine, it is about ideology. That this should be the basis or the framework for the theory later on to be developed. So if we're talking about the faith just now, of course, faith is the scholars are able to develop faith without, in the first place, the Quran provide the doctrine or the foundations. Then after that, to understand the Quran, then develop faith. And then later on, there is practice, there is new cases, and then give another opinion, then how to give another opinion, then the scholars start to discuss about rules of giving the opinions. Then after Imam Shafi'i came, he collects all this, then he do kind of systematization, then also faith is emerging, right? Yeah. So I think so. Actually, this part, how, yeah, we can show you, but it is still very not systematic. So I just show this is how we do it, yeah? But we are not really satisfied yet for these subtopics, and how we discuss the normative or doctrinal approach, and then this is a critics to fiqh approach. Then positivism, yeah, methodological positivism, empirical approach in Islamic economics. And then scholars give critiques to the more methodological positivism or the mainstream approach in Islamic economics. And then ethical approach, yeah, proposed by some scholars here. Including Prof. Mehmet, Islamic moral economy, but actually this Nagwi, who is the first in proposing the ethics and economics in Islamic synthesis. And then there is also eclecticism's approach in Islamic economics. Because eclectic, it is just a kind of dialectic. Methodological pluralism, take whatever is beneficial to us, then we can use it for Islamic economics development. And then this is Chowdhury approach, Tawhidi approach, and he has so many rating on this.
This one, Hafaz is the expert. I told him 10 years ago, I cannot.
It was Chaudhary.
And I remember Dr. Shahu, he told me he went to the library, he was very excited because there was a book there written on Islamic worldview by Chaudhary. And he thought finally I will get something. He opened it and he says he could not.
Mathematical equation.
All mathematical equations, right? So it's quite a challenge. But if you are into this area, then by all means you should try to understand him and present to everybody else.
Yes. So Tawhidi string relation. So that is usul fiqh for Tawhidi methodology. ESR. And then integrative approach. So integrative approach, Islamization of economics. So we discuss here what scholars says about Islamization. So even though Islamization, scholars try to there is differences among the scholars on the meaning of Islamization and then how to do Islamization. So how to do Islamization, because there is Anwar is different with the Muhammad Anwar and Chapra and Manan. So the steps are different. And then critics to the Islamization of economic approach. Of course, we talk about critics, so many critics to this approach. Then the future direction. But we cannot say anything yet for this. This is just a temporary. Just put it what we are expecting from the development of Islamic economy in the future. Yeah, I think so. Basically, what we have done so far, and we are still keep reading. Some articles are not read yet. So, inshallah, there will be much more. Will come with this to complete all the discussion in this outline. I think that's all for.
I just want to add something. I was doing my PhD Islamic actually a true approach, not a field of driving theory. Summarization of knowledge initially was defined as to take out the secularizing ethnocentric European dimension of knowledge out and put the Islamic values inside. Unfortunately, the problem is, but we are still maintaining the core of this thing, although they're taking out the negative aspect. But then, as what Karim said, but he didn't maintain when he was doing the actual work, is he carry some baggage, even for example, economic assumption on the rational economic. That is not valid assumption. Like, there was a nice article in Radical Developments of Accounting Theory, Accounting Media. And that is the first article, I think, maybe the second, which doesn't have any accounting, mathematical equation. It basically, and it is the worldview, the research worldview, and the assumptions which you make when you do theory. It is a very good paper. Anybody should read Radical Developments of Economics. It's written by a Malaysian, Chinese, who had to leave the country and go to the US and focus it. All right. So
she would be like the heterodox schools in accounting.
Yes, heterodox, all the critical theories and that. She went through all the major methodologies. So that is the two things. So when I started my work, what I did was, okay, I want to go through the Quran and see what are the principles, economic principles, financial principles, which I can take out. Then the problem is I didn't know Arabic. And even the word interest, some say interest, some usually, some did, no way I that. I took 30 years to finish my PhD, so I go this further. And EOB also didn't know. Every said, okay, we take principles and then we cannot do that. So we have to go through throwing out the negative, aspect of Western knowledge, and then maybe there is a phase thing like that. So I thought, okay, let me do what. So I looked at what others have taken. For example, in your case, you could learn from this leftist economic side. And now there's so many alternate economics there. So because they criticize the capitalist economics, not necessarily going to the communist one. But that gives us some work to do, because especially when doing a PhD, you have no reference material. We have to climb on to somebody easy. But the social and environmental provided me something in the critical theory. So there you go. So maybe we can do that in the economics, and then so but we have to go to the final ultimate goal, which is unless we come to the Quran and Sunnah, we cannot do it. One of the good things which I found a really book is Akram Khan. Remember Akram Khan in
Yeah.
Pakistan?
Akram
The
Khan,
auditor.
Yeah.
He wrote a book on economics in Hadith.
Yeah.
There was a book.
Annotated.
I lost the book. I bought the
Collection
book
of
and lost it.
economic analysis.
So he took all the words from each and he divided it into topics, the hadith and all the economic topics, and then same thing could be done in the Quran. So once we get, like, for example, there's an ayah saying there shouldn't be concentration of wealth. Don't let the wealth disappear on each other. So things like this, like, for example, I took in account in Surah Baqarah and Surah Hud, I was listening to a tafsir class. And suddenly it struck me, hey, this is accounting. All right. So I made a paper on that and presented in London. That was a good one. So you have to do this work, right? It's tough work. You have to know Arabic. Without Arabic, you have to know the classical Arabic, and then that's why we need to. We cannot take from, but we need faqih. We need faqih and usul fiqh. So we don't go out of the circle, but they cannot give us our solution. We have to then we go through this source materials, and then we have to look at our Ibn Khaldun and all those people writing and what Islamic work and so on, and then we get rejected. So I think we have to come and I like the third approach of defining what is inside Islamic economics. From principle derived from the so which methodology is that follow? From Islamic worldview, we put some certain methodologies.
Which one? Number 3.
Tawhidi,
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Tawhidic approach and the Islamization approach. Then
even you can call it Islam. In fact,
Big
I
approach.
call my theory Islamization of account. That is my account theory for my research. And the guy, because he found it so novel, finally somebody said something. He passed me. That's why luckily I went to the right institution. If I go to America, forget it. You're talking nonsense. They want positivist.
yeah.
So inshallah, but we have to get there somehow. 50 years now. But even social accounting took 50 years, not because of environment. There is a need in that world for environmental accounting, so social accounting. But sooner, inshallah, the more Islamic the society become, then there will be a need for this. Otherwise,
I think one of the challenges that we face when we want to talk about developing Islamic economics is, everybody will say, let's go back to the Quran. I mean, if anybody says other than that, they are not accepted. So, but everybody will say. The challenge is, of course, between saying you want to go back to the Quran or quoting an ayat of the Quran or Hadith to support the case, and then your understanding of it. And I think that is where, when you look at all the different scholars who have presented Islamic economics, you find that varying opinions because they understand it differently. So I think methodology helps you to try and make sense of why somebody has that view.
yeah,
And you'll be able to evaluate whether a certain person is being consistent in his views. So if I have a view like this, then I should also have a view like this. So that is where the principles that you follow and your understanding of the principle, because that's another issue. You mentioned just now that we could use for process of theory principle. We could use the principles that were given by, let's say, modern knowledge, but the meaning of it may be different, right? So, what is, let's say, if a principle is principle of verification, then what does verification mean from an Islamic perspective? It's not just what my intellect says to be right. It has to be. In this way, Hapas thesis, he talked about revelation, practice, revelation. They've got to be together. They cannot be opposite. So I think that's the challenge for us. We have
I think all the approaches I believe going on, when you say Tawhidi, it's also going back to Islamization in the sense that we want to go through the Islamic world.
Yeah.
So I think even eclectic we can do because we have to take our knowledge from wherever we get. So we have to learn from one, for example, when in Islamic accounting, we have to learn from what has been done there. Like when we do literature, we have to see what's there right now. So instead of rebuilding it. So yeah, I think a lot of this, I think it's a nice way to lay out and make your thought more clear than just blah 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 blah. It's a nice way of doing it. And then we have to keep on thinking, and inshallah it will work. Maybe take another 50 years, you know. But it's done. The wheel is moving. That's good. Thank you.
There's one question in the chat.
Oh, come on.
Oh, you trying to do more. Oh, from psychology is here. Oh, okay.
Rahmatina,
Yeah.
Miss Rahmatina.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Syed Tahir, are you there? If you go to the participants.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. My congratulations to all of you for being so, you can say, committed to Islamic economics and continuously, without stopping, carrying on the torch. Very good. Please, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all.
Thank you, Prof. Good to hear you. It would make our day if we could see you also.
Just open your video.
Let me put on my shirt and then I can.
This is normal.
Assalamualaikum. Can I ask something?
Yeah, please.
Yes,
Can
please.
I?
Yeah, please.
Okay, Bismillah. First of all, may I know might have missed it, the selection criteria for the articles and chapters?
Okay. Yeah. So in this case, we just collect all the articles that discuss certain things on methodology. Yeah. Even in the last 7 days, in the past 7 days, since we feel that the specific articles on methodology is we feel this very that is short. Very,
Yeah, but is there any clear criteria?
Yeah.
Whether it's in title, whether it's in the subtitle or abstract? Can I?
Yeah, we do that kind of collection. We can share from, and even though and we also can share the quotations that we have for each articles that we have read.
Okay.
So I think it's a good point.
The fact that you want to share is excellent, and you have been very generous with your sharing, in fact, all this while, which is excellent for the progress of the discipline. My concern is specific. I mean, I want to get a clear answer on what is the selection criteria. Usually, sometimes we go by title, sometimes we go by abstract, content abstract, or TU. That will make it more scientific, right? I mean,
Yeah. So in this regard, we go not only we are not reading only abstracts. We are reading the whole articles, and then we
Okay.
put some
statement
from the articles, and then we try to do a connection based on that quotation.
Okay. So excellent. So is that how do you explain the difference in terms of number? The 296 minus 25 is not 213. So how do you explain the difference?
Yeah.
Can
So
I like to...
or in total we have list in our references is 296, right? But then when we go through, there are some articles that need to be omitted because of this 296 include in Bahasa Indonesia. So that what we use for the analyzing the cerita is only 26213.
Okay. So if I get actually in terms of frame of thinking, I think this program or this project will always be a work in progress. for the simple fact that we are still struggling to grasp on the nature and purpose of Islamic economics. Unless and until we are very clear about that, then only you can have the question of methodology coming in. Simply because, this is my opinion, methodology by nature is a process issue rather than the end in itself. So for that reason, we have to look for what is the end that the methodology is serving. So the methodology is serving to the nature and purpose of the discipline, without which there's no clarity on what criteria should be put in, on what are the concerns that should be given priority over others, and I guess you know more than me lah on what concern that I'm trying to highlight here. Anyway, it was an excellent work in progress, given that it is due time to really get a hold of the whole collection of things which are on the methodology issue. And so for that reason, kudos to the team. And how do you then, let's say now, in terms of number just now, right? I think in terms of number, I'm referring to the number again. In terms of number, there will be an overlap of article. Okay, let's say you take, let's say I give you a simple example. My paper on the method and substance of Islamic economics revisited, that is actually a methodology issue. And the one in intellectual discourse, that is also a methodological issue, even though I actually talk about the micro foundations. But the critique is one that is on the methodology of Islamic economics itself. If we want to be more scientific, then we have to think about what kind of micro foundations should we capture or use as presumptions in our modeling exercise, is what Dr. Prof. Said Tahi is suggesting. So these are the shady area where we can refine further. Simply because, like I said, if you just take the title, you might lose out in terms of certain, like in the intellectual discourse, it's not titled with methodology. It's not titled with epistemology. But if you look at the substance of discussion, a critique on micro foundation is actually a critique on methodology, because once we are clear about the presumption, then we can bring it forward to the modeling exercise and proceed from there on. So this is just a simple note, which of course I might be wrong. So I'm here first and foremost to learn more from the esteemed guests and also esteemed panelists in the room. But I'm sorry for not being able to be around physically. And I'm sorry if my comments are not well accepted by any. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Okay, thank you very much, Kamali. Yes, I think I got your point. That's why in the early month when we start this research, we try to collect all the papers that is directly discuss methodology. Then eventually we feel that it cannot be done like that. Because the discussion is not rich. So we have to expand, we have to expand the literature to also include the articles that we think will discuss the methodology. So we expand the articles, and then so that's why the number of articles becomes 213. So if we just collect the methodology paper, then it is only 100. It is very not many articles discuss on methodology until. So we choose the second approach, whereby we take the articles that we think it will discuss something on methodology. It has some quotation, some interesting idea on what we want related to our subtopics, to our subcategories. Then we take also into account that articles. And then with regard to the development of methodology, yes, I think I also agree that methodology, we should treat methodology as a tool. or as a means and not as an end by itself. So since it is a tool, then of course tools keep coming, right? We keep innovating new tools, and also in the development of science and scientific developments. So we also believe that the tools are keep coming. But what we mean by methodological discussion is about producing tools. So yeah, if tool is methods, but the methodological discourse is about how we can produce tools, how we produce the criteria, how we produce frameworks, or how we produce approach. So there is a methodological discussion. And in fact, the discussion on Maqasid Sharia currently, so even though it is the objective of Sharia, it is considered also as the methodological discussion. We did the Jasir Auda books, so he treats in his latest books methodology as Maqasid as a methodology. So that is I think the latest development. Yeah.
Ahmadina, welcome. Good to see you, or good to see that you are with us.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Dr. Hafaz. And I cannot see the others, but I can see there was Dr. Mustafa Omar, and of course the others from IUM. It's very good to see you all. Alhamdulillah. I am enjoying the research, Dr. Hafaz. It's quite complicated. Now I can see the others.
Yeah.
MashaAllah, it's been a long. I remember.
Yeah, since I'm retired now, I become also cameraman and video.
MashaAllah.
Yes, I believe Dr. Shahul was your lecturer, right?
Yes, Dr. Shahul, how are you? Prof. Shahul. And MashaAllah, it's been a long time. I need to visit IUM once again soon. Inshallah. Okay.
Yeah, Prof. Saitai had something on the chat.
And Dr. Hafaz, it's very interesting. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ahmadina. Prof. Saitai, maybe you want to say also something?
You wrote it down. Maybe we can just show also what you wrote so that we can.
I don't know how to handle the camera on my side.
Oh.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes. We cannot see your shirt, but we can see it.
If you can see me, that's fine.
It's okay.
Please, Prof.
I would just request Brother Hafaz. MashaAllah, he has gone very deeply into issues of epistemology, ontology, epistemology, methodology, and for so many years and so many papers. Has he thought of taking some practical issue and developing some sort of systematic argument on that as an economist, Islamic economist?
Showing that methodology applies or can be put into effect.
Yeah. Just allow me to say a few things, then I have to go rush for Juma.
Okay.
My own work since I left your nice company, I also reflected on Islamic worldview in the equation, in the sense of purpose of life for us as a test, and relation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to everything, like in Surah Mujadala or probably Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if there are two of you, he is the, there are three of you, he is the fourth. If you are five of you, he is the sixth. Then the ayah very specific, because it pointedly says, if number is more or less, he is always the next one. So given that this life is a test for us, basically, and exchange is a primary necessity, and we are given free will. So basically, you think of market-based economy with full freedom of exchange, but the point which needs to be explored and then integrated, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in the picture. That is through the rules of the game he has set for us. So the fiqh language does not lead us to those things. So I see a lot of times there's a negative or sort of very harsh criticism. Islamic economics is neoclassical economics. No, please. When you say there is going to be freedom of full freedom of choice for humans, ayyukum ahsanu amala, full freedom, and we realize none of us is self-sufficient in all our needs. So exchange is a primary necessity, and exchange with full freedom, the place is market. Only question that may be asked is, what are the how the market is expected to work? What are the rules of the game? Riba is only one minor matter. There are so many other things. You put them together, and some of the things started to make meaning. Consumer choice, unavoidable. Basically, issue is you are acquiring things for personal use, not for income generation or output generation. So issue has to be seen in another angle. But somebody is focused in an occupation as a producer, then his behavior, things are to be seen in probably in a different way, in a different separately. But our problem is we have not been able to successfully pinpoint the types of transactions and institutional norms, markets, and even so many other things. These are just random thoughts. I'm not was ready for this, but hopefully hope to see you see you all one day, either personally or through some printed things. So please remember me in your dua. I need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yeah, very good, I think, insight from Said. And this is also the challenge, since we have discussed the methodology since, I think, past many years. So now Prof is waiting the practical application of this methodology.
No, I think one point, if I got Prof. Tahir correctly, I think it's also related to maybe some of the slides that you had put.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the idea is to highlight the distinctive features.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, sometimes people understand distinctive features to be only the differences. I think we shouldn't get caught with this idea that somehow or other Islamic economics has to be very exclusively different from, economics for humanity, right? So this idea of always wanting to differentiate yourself from others. Yes, of course, we need to know what are those that difference, but we also need to know the similarities, right? So I believe there are many things that have developed, not only in neoclassical economics, but even in the other schools of economics, that we could actually adopt. That is not necessarily against, the Islamic view. Of course, the challenge is don't get stuck in the, in that framework. I think that is the challenge of trying to develop Islamic economics. It's not about rejecting everything or accepting everything. It's about that interaction and then knowing what you can accept, what you have to modify, and it must represent a genuine Islamic position. I think that is the challenge, right? So the criticisms of Islamic economics becoming just, kind of a branch of neoclassical economics or something, it's probably because the way things are presented, and I agree with, Prof. Shahul, I suppose it's because primarily of Islamic banking that has given that view. He added accounting just now, so I'm first time I'm hearing accounting. I always search for banking, but if that's the case, then we need to make sure that we do present an authentic Islamic economics. But that authentic Islamic economics doesn't have to be totally different. Yeah, I like Nakvi who said it. We don't have to dissociate ourselves from anything that is stated, either in let's say some of the writings of the capitalist economics or even of socialist economics, as long as there is a basis in Islam. Right? So it's always that Islamic base that is going to evaluate. Right? And I think that is the challenge. Yeah. Prof. Said Tahir, are you in agreement or you have a slightly different view? Or
I will slightly add one point. Take the case of how, firstly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in the picture. As per that ayah, he is directly, personally a party in every muamla because he is the owner of everything. So, in all exchanges, every matter, his willingness, his consent is also essential. And his point of view, his willingness is basically Sharia. So taking a cue from this point, take the case of us in our financial side. We have money, we buy things. If we do not have money, we need some alternative arrangement. Either the seller is willing to accept deferred payment, or a third party comes into the picture to bridge the financial gap. Now, in the traditional conventional framework, that financial gap is filled through interest-based lending, borrowing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed his point on this issue. No riba, basically the exchanges of same things, like for like, must be on equal basis. Debts must be settled on equal basis. That closes the door on what is going on and its implications for all the institutional development in the world. Here, now when you accommodate the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the third party can provide financial accommodation, financial help by not giving money to the fund seeker, but coming in the picture as economic agent, buying from the seller, selling on deferred payment, or arranging some partnership arrangement with the you can say needy party and entering into the whole transaction process. So if you further work out the issues to various cases, the final implication is the financial flows will be tied to real flows or linked to real flows. And to say it more directly and more pointedly, financial and real sectors will be integrated, or real and financial sectors will be integrated. So you will not have the classical dichotomy between the monetary side and the real side. So this is now a major theoretical implication which you can model. Then it has further economic implications. When the financial flows are tied to real flows, money from financial institutions go to producers directly, not through the hands of the borrower, but directly to the producer. So you expect these supply constraints to be eased, the better supply, market supply. And on the other hand, because the borrower does not get the money in his or her hand, so this free, can say, lifestyle, buying on credit card, etc., which pump up the demand, that will be rationalized. So you will have problems of a different nature, not can say the type of inflation you have today, not the type of unemployment you have today. So these are some points I hope I'm able to communicate in a clear way. So if we start going to the roots and start constructing the argument on issue by issue basis, then hopefully, inshallah, we get an integrated picture which has stamp of Sharia, not fiqh. And then as you say, as people say, seeing is believing. So once we have very neat and clean, tidy arguments, explanations for all our, if not all, our major issues, then we can seek a claim to our economics. Whether let others call it Islamic economics. Basically, our economics tied up to our faith, our deen, more importantly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He made life test for us. So please, brothers, maybe it is when I used to have discussion with Dr. Muhyiddin, I still remember and cherish it. My emphasis was, please let us go for reconstruction of Islamic economics. I left you how many years? 2017, and now it is 6 years. So, mashallah, all of you have become more experienced and more knowledgeable and better than me. So if everybody start putting in small effort, subject will move forward, inshallah. So please, I'm really personally thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making me part of you. I still enjoy my time in the 80s and 6 years lately with all of you. So please, my prayers for you, and we look forward to healthy, strong, and contributions from all of you. Let us go beyond talking about methodology. Let us do methodology.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Let's apply the methodology.
Let us do epistemology. We have to put in our compass correctly,
Yeah.
provide the basic links.
Okay,
I may personally share some of my work with and then with Dr. Aslam, and then see if we want to go with it, make it public. Okay, so take care.
Yeah.
May Allah
Okay,
subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you and include me also among his chosen people. Ameen.
Ameen.
Jazakallah. Jazakallah.
Wassalam. Allah Hafiz. I'm now going for Juma.
All right.
Thank you.
Pray for us.
Dr. Mahyudi asked you to make
Yeah.
dua for us.
Yeah.
Always, alhamdulillah, I daily try to pray for all of you.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's for me personally, I think in order to solve this, it's important. Acknowledge, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that Islamic economics is a social science. And by acknowledging that we know that as a social science, not the same as a natural science are. That's the first thing. And the second part is not the same as a big science. So I know that big science is not right. So basically it's part of the science in different ways. It's not science, right? It's not the same as big. So by acknowledging that as a social science, so we need to believe that it needs to be studied. Part of it as part of its whole nature of things. And at the same time, since because we are doing we understand things around us is depending on what we believe in. At the same time, we also need to acknowledge that part of us is guidance. So we give guidance, and all of this is very important that we need to complement each other. So as a social science, I think it's very important for us to define that what it means by social science from some perspective. So if we are able to start from that, perhaps we can classify what kind of methodologies are there. And also I think because this is actually my task, my PhD, because I was asked so many things but this discussion is already on that. They asked me to do something that what do you mean by this in terms of practical economics. So when I said that we need to accept the methodology of the economic there, right? But writers ask me, what do you mean? What is methodology? What is the state of the economic land in economic realm? So now I have to make it more specific what is in terms of behavior. I need to find that since because the economic land has basically perhaps 3 or 4 natures, right? And in general, we can classify it to physical and metaphysical things. But in more specifically, we can classify it to the nerves and also intellect and also the room. And so class is form. And some people, I think some of writing in some content is classify form and room as the same thing as spiritual part. Because form as a physical part is not really important to be discussed by us, or maybe for medical something important. Form as spiritual, then alatas, is specified to what you. But then I need to specify it again. So how this impact? What do you mean by how one impact is? Is it rational or irrational? Is it the trend is the consumption would be, you know that consumption is against the price of something. Is it only price, the variables that we need to study in economics? So I know this is not easy to do that, so that's why I'm doing it. But the thing that I learned is it is also important to classify things that when we found something, we need to put it in the actual context. For example, when we find that in the Quranic text, there's several verses mention about moderation, right? So what do you mean by moderation? Is it moderation in terms as the nature of economic moderation, or moderation is just a general guidance? So that's as the concept of moderation, it will take out the concept of maximization or actually moderation has its own part and maximization has its own part. So when we're able to classify this thing, I think it's very important what philosophers, even Muslim philosophers, always stress about this, right? Even Professor Smart in this thesis, he wrote about classification of knowledge in order for us to classify the arguments, what it means, and the context. So when we're able to classify this, it perhaps gives us a clear direction, what it means by this and what it means by this. And then we organize it again to become more towards the proper Islamic social, Islamic social science. So that's what I know it's not easy to do because we have it, but at least I think that I believe that it's a proper way in order to solve this kind of
If I just can just respond, I think, this idea that economics is a social science, and if we agree, then I think one of the big implications in all our decision making is that we should be developing Islamic economics as if everyone matters. If you look at the way that modern economics, especially neoclassical economics, has gone, it's the individual, right? Anything you do is for yourself. You don't think of others. But if you think of economics as a social science, it means that you are part of society. I remember in one book, somebody said, it's a very interesting thing. You talk about income, in economics. But income means there is somebody who's giving, somebody who's taking. Right? So it's already a relationship of two. But yet in economics, it's all about you. So developing Islamic economics should be an Islamic economics in which others' well-being are also part of your decision making. And I remember the pioneers of Islamic economics talked about this. Right? You read Siddiqui, you read Mannan, you read some of the others. They all said that initially, that when we make decisions, we don't only think of ourselves. We have to think of others. Yeah? So, but it never caught on. You find that maybe this is where neoclassical economic methodology and theories dominate. We don't discuss it anymore. We kind of accept it. But that theory is based on my utilities, based on my own decisions for me. Nothing to do with other people. And yet, economics is a social science. You're in a society. You're in a society. Right? So I would have thought that part is why it's important to stress social science. So it requires you to make decisions where you not only think of only your own well-being. Right? So that's why I argue Islamic economics is a social economics. Social finance is probably Islamic finance, where you think of others as well in your decision making. So the decision making has to be decision making not only for you but for others as well. How do you put that in a model, in a theory? Right? So that needs a certain methodology.
But before that, but I also propose the same thing. I think maybe just concept of it. So I also propose the same thing. I say that perhaps utility is supposed to be. I think you could also tell me focus on utility of
interdependent utility.
Yeah, interdependent.
This is something that is already there in the literature, but we didn't pick it up. It's there. It's been there for at least 40 years. Interdependent utility function.
But before that, it also needed to establish, because interdependent utility is derived from the concept of concessionalization, of the human nature, right? So I think because that's why it's very important to specify this. We need to step by step to define economic activity is rational or irrational. So if we're able to start from this and slowly move on forward, so we can eventually get interdependent or non-interdependent. Or I think it's just a choice of economic activity. So it will be more organized and something clearer. But yeah, in order to establish that's because I was asked that I I'm not giving answer yet because I need to give answer to my supervisors. So I will depend on what I have on this. Is there anything else? Just double check.
Yeah, I think there's no more.
Okay. Just put these things inside that. The point is social science. We have to think of others outside. Whether it's a rational science, whether it's rational or whether it's utility, means depends on your worldview. In addition to thinking of others, we also think of akhirat. Yeah, according to the fact me, thinking of others also is because we have a duty towards others because of akhirat. Otherwise, we don't care. You know, so it is for us. It's rational to think of other people, and even sacrifice our utility because we know that this is not the end of the world. Our life is not ending here. Going to go another place. So in our worldview, it's rational. In India's, it's not. We have to maximize our this thing here because there's no other thing after this. You're like finished gone. But that also is even the word rationality. All will change according to God. I think we can incorporate this sort of things. Like I think it's a very good thing. The first time I'm hearing consider the word others and stuff. Yeah, we should take it out.
I mean, just to add, Hafaz has an opinion that there are certain, so we can use our own terms rather than rational. Okay, now, I may not agree with him on that because to me, when you speak English language, that's the word that is being used. If you want to develop in Arabic, by all means, you can use all the terms because if you change rational or something, then I ask you, then why do we accept consumption? Why do we accept production? Why do we? All of these are terms in economics. Right? So, since we are speaking in English, we are using English terms. But you can have an equivalent term that you find in the Quran or in the Hadith. By all means, work on that term. Just like somebody, what was it you said? Interest, right? Don't get caught up with interest. Go to riba because in the Quran it mentions riba. But what do you understand by riba? Right? That's the important thing. So similarly, when you want to develop the term of Quran, what do you understand by it? And how does it relate to this idea in English language, which in economics, rationality means just this. We don't want that. So
maybe definition.
Thank you, Prof. Because since you mentioned just now about that, because I have article discussing the micro foundation of Islamic economics. So there are three new terms proposed. Actually, this is for us. So the rationality we replace by the taqwa, that utility by maslahah, that interest we discussed in the concept of hukuk. Hukuk. Because interest, because if we discuss it in the framework of haq or hukuk, then it is not only about right, it is also obligation. So
Can I get the article?
yeah.
You know, I asked your wife my number.
Okay. Thank you very much for the participation and then also for the feedback for this research. Allah will do something. And please pray for us so that we can complete this research. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hafaz, for that very interesting presentation. And thank you everyone also for the inputs, for the comments and the questions. So I think we have a very, very interesting discussion today. So inshallah, we look forward to hear other presentations.